Hello, healthcare enthusiasts, and welcome back to The Cure. This is the podcast where we are revolutionizing the business of healthcare in Africa, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Temitope Koka, and each episode I sit with the people shaping the future of healthcare in Africa, from founders to investors, researchers, and beyond. Our goal is to infuse hope into the narrative by spotlighting the momentum and progress that's already unfolding across the continent. And at the heart of every episode is one key question: what does it take to revolutionize the African healthcare business model? All of our insights are powered by TC Health, your trusted source for healthcare and pharmaceutical insights in sub Saharan Africa. So let's get into today's episode. I'm really excited. I'm going to just set up a scenario so that you understand the importance of what we're going to be discussing today. So when you have a headache, when you have a cold, when you even have malaria, you usually would go to your pharmacy and you pick up tried and tested drugs to make you feel better. Now, picture those same medicines designed and made here, tuned to our bodies, to our climate, to our lifestyles. And today we talk about building more medicines for us and by us. My guest is Charles Ogunwuyi, CEO and founder of Sygen Pharmaceuticals. Before Sygen, he led programs at Ford in Detroit. He took on senior roles at Diageo, also known as Guinness Nigeria, and served as chief operating officer and partner at Coronation. That range matters for this conversation, and you'll see why in just a little bit. He also launched Sygen Life Sciences Institute to grow scientific talent. And last year, Sygen formed Sygen ORX Biosciences, a joint venture with a Canadian partner to accelerate Africa Fit formulations. A few months ago, Charles, you wrote that Nigeria's biopharma revolution is getting started and that our sector is at a turning point. You argued that health builds jobs, knowledge, and life-saving access all at the same time. And that is the energy of today's episode. Charles, welcome to The Cure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. Now, before we jump into our conversation today, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to appropriately set the stage and outline some of the signals we've been seeing in the pharma landscape in Africa. And throughout this whole preamble, Charles, feel free to jump in and provide your lens as well. So one of the first things I'll say is, as much as 90% of the drugs that are consumed in sub-Saharan Africa are imported, and China and India are the dominant players in this kind of global export of pharmaceuticals to Africa. 3 countries in Africa, so Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa, have quite sizable pharmaceutical industries on the continent. Nigeria's pharmaceutical market was valued at $2.7 billion and is projected to grow to approximately $4.2 billion by 2028. In 2023, Kenya's pharmaceutical market was valued at $800 million and it's projected to exceed $1.5 billion by next year. South Africa was valued at $4.6 million in 2022, making it the largest and most advanced pharmaceutical market in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, most of the pharmaceutical companies in sub-Saharan Africa are drug product manufacturers who buy APIs from other manufacturers and formulate them into finished pills, syrups, creams, capsules, and other drugs for local markets or for export. And I'm just going to break that down a little bit. So an API is an active pharmaceutical ingredient, and this is the fundamental building block of drug manufacturing. It consists of the primary ingredient for producing a medicine's desired health effect. APIs are made from raw materials, and they have a specified strength and specified chemical concentration. When I say APIs, just think of common APIs like paracetamol, ibuprofen, amoxicillin, among others. And the current situation is that less than 10 pharmaceutical manufacturers actually produce APIs on the continent, with one of the most prominent ones in South Africa. And so in essence, we're mostly importing the building blocks and not making them here. However, our guest today, Charles, has very high ambitions to change that. But we've also seen some really exciting developments in the pharma space. For example, last year, Emzor, one of the largest pharmaceutical manufacturers in Nigeria, announced plans to establish an API facility in Ogun State with an investment of $23 million. The main focus of this API facility is to tackle the problem of malaria, both in Nigeria but also on the continent. We've also seen vaccine manufacturing hubs being built all across the African continent. So the COVID vaccine maker, BioNTech, has secured up to $145 million from the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, or CEPI. Their mission is to accelerate the development of vaccines and other biological countermeasures against epidemic and pandemic threats so that they can be accessible to all patients in need. And so this $145 million investment is to speed up this mRNA vaccine factory in Kigali, Rwanda, which would be the first of its kind on the continent with a capacity of about 50 million doses a year. And for those listening, when I say mRNA vaccine, it is the same mechanism as the Pfizer-BioNTech and the Moderna COVID vaccines. So the goal is not only routine and consistent supply of vaccines, but also to pivot quickly in any future disease outbreak, any future pandemic. And that means half of the plant's capacity can be redirected to those types of emergencies. And this is a signal that Africa's vaccine ambitions are moving from just talk to bricks, to steel, to factories, with production targeted to start this year. We've also seen the International Finance Corporation, or the IFC, make some moves in the pharma space. So the IFC is a member of the World Bank Group, and it's the largest global development institution focused on the private sector in emerging markets. And the IFC and its partners committed $45 million to Institut Pasteur de Dakar, or IPD. They have a facility in Senegal, and it's a new multi-vaccine plant designed to produce up to 300 million doses a year for African markets. This is a concrete step toward the African Union's goal of 60% of the vaccines on the continent being manufactured on the continent by 2040. mRNA technology transfers are also moving from just a concept to practice. And when I say technology transfers, I mean the knowledge, the know-how, the technical expertise to actually build and manufacture these types of complex drugs and vaccines is being transferred to local organizations and institutions on the continent. And so CEPI, as I mentioned previously, they also committed $6.2 million to Afrigen. It's a local biotech in South Africa to develop the first Africa-developed human mRNA vaccine for Rift Valley fever. And it takes it from preclinical, so before you even run clinical trials in humans, up to a phase 1 trial, so your earlier stage clinical trial in Africa. This will build local mRNA knowledge. It would speed up our outbreak response. It would move the continent towards real vaccine sovereignty. And this is all happening in the African pharma landscape as we speak. And when we think about the regulatory front, so we need regulators to kind of regulate the space. As we get more and more developments in the African pharma space, we want regulators to make sure that the drugs being developed are safe for human use. And so on the regulatory front, we're also seeing amazing developments. More national agencies have reached WHO maturity level 3, which is basically the WHO's confirmation that a regulator has a stable, well-functioning system to oversee the safety, quality, and effectiveness of medicines and vaccines. And there are quite a number of sub-Saharan African countries on this list today. So countries on this list now include Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Rwanda, Senegal, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. And for the average person, this means safer products on your pharmacy shelves, quicker access to new treatments, and a clearer path for local companies to not only make drugs for the people on the continent, but to export and grow our economies. So in summary, We see two truths happening at once in the African pharma industry. There are huge gaps, but we also have real momentum in front of us. And today we are speaking with a builder in the pharma industry who is taking big leaps and using this momentum to put safer African made medicines on African shelves for African patients. Now, the core question that anchors all of our discussions here at The Cure is, what does revolutionizing the African healthcare business model look like? And we're going to be focusing on the pharma industry today. Now, about 3 months ago, Charles, you posted on LinkedIn that Nigeria's biopharma revolution is just getting started.
Yeah.
I'm going to read your words. You wrote that by all measures, Nigeria's pharmaceutical sector is at a turning point. A biopharma revolution is underway, driven by necessity, accelerated by innovation, and powered by local resilience. You also said that Africa missed the Industrial Revolution. We lagged in tech, but biopharma is different. Health is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And unlike oil or data, pharma builds jobs, knowledge, and life-saving access all at once. Every locally made product, every ECOWAS export, every approved trial is a foundational win. Momentum is building and momentum compounds. And this is one of my favorite quotes from what you wrote. The Nigerian biopharma revolution isn't coming from abroad. It's being built by Nigerians, and for Africa. Let's not stall, let's lead. And because season 1 is themed by Africa for Africa, this is the perfect place to start. I want to speak to the man behind those words and have that conversation about building medicines for us and the new wave of African pharma innovation that is happening. But before we jump into the wider pharma landscape and what you're building with Sygen, I actually want to start with you because as I was, doing my little LinkedIn stalking and my research before I was prepping for this episode, I noticed that you've had a very interesting career. So you didn't start out in healthcare. You spent about 8 years at Ford in Detroit as a program leader. And then you spent about 5 years at Diageo at Guinness Nigeria PLC. You moved to Nigeria with Guinness. And then you were at Coronation, a major financial services group in Nigeria, as chief operating officer and partner for almost 7 years. Then you pivoted into pharma and became CEO of Sygen Pharmaceuticals. And so I would love to just dive into that journey because it feels unconventional. It feels like every step was unexpected, from Ford to Diageo to Coronation to Sygen, and each pivot kind of seemed bigger than the last. And so I'm just very curious if you could walk us through your journey of how you got to where you are today at Sygen.
Okay. It's very interesting. I think so. Let me take a step back. So where I am today at Sygen is more of my entrepreneurial journey, right? But if I was to go back, I think intuitively I've always been entrepreneurial, right? But coming from a background of where, back in my time growing up in Nigeria, right, being entrepreneurial was, at least from my family's perspective, was not kind of the way to go, right? It was, you had to go to school,
Doctor, lawyer,
get a degree, and so you just don't wake up and say, "Oh, I want to be an entrepreneur." So I guess even though I'd had some entrepreneurial exploits whilst I was in university here doing my undergraduate degrees, I was not really that encouraged that was going to be a long-term path for me to follow. So at some point, right, I knew I had to leave the country and go do my master's, which was kind of like the typical thing to do at the time I was going to school here, which I did do. And I knew I had to gain world-class experience, right? But I think the entrepreneurial spirit never really died in me. So I think I carried that with me. And so even when I was joining Ford after school, or some of the other jobs I'd had before I joined Ford while I was in the US, I'd always operated with an entrepreneurial mindset. Right. And I think my journey coming out of grad school and then joining Ford was also kind of a very fortunate one too, because my first kind of role or experiences with Ford put me in a more entrepreneurial division of Ford, which was Ford's emerging markets team, right? So that also reinforced more of the entrepreneurial part of me because it was more like Ford's startup type organization,
interesting,
right?
yeah.
So it was the organization that was helping Ford set up in new markets in Belarus, where I worked in Thailand, in Vietnam. I was actually dubbed Mr. Vietnam
nice.
in my time at Ford. Spent almost 2 years setting up that business, right? So I think a lot of that allowed me to also be in a very structured, mature global environment, but also doing entrepreneurial things, right? So that journey was also kind of reinforced my entrepreneurial type mindset. And then was a very broad role. So it was more of a strategy role, re-engineering role, technology role. So very great, platform for me to understand how to develop strategies for business, how to set up businesses and stuff like that. And I'm saying this just because of the skills, because we were kind of thinking the pivot was kind of a bit dramatic, but I think the foundational skills is what I'm kind of alluding to, right? I was just fortunate to be in that kind of, organization, that kind of role that allowed you to understand how businesses were set up and then to actually go set them up. And then subsequently, I had some kind of operational roles, but they were more functional type roles. Like I had a stint in marketing at Ford, which was a great experience as well. But I think in the process, I started to look at the things that I was doing for Ford globally, because I had other global roles. And I kept thinking, this could be done, back home in Nigeria, right? Because I always felt like, at some point I would come back to Nigeria. At that time, I spent probably about 12, 11 years outside the country. And good fortune kind of happened because I was thinking about it. I got kind of called by some recruiters that were looking for Africans in diaspora to come back this way. So, cut a long story short, I ended up going with Diageo.
Okay.
Because Diageo wanted me to do similar stuff I'd done, leverage the same skills around, setting up businesses and transforming businesses, really driven around value creation, right? How do we create value with our businesses, and how do we set up, resilient business models? How do we set things up for, long sustainable returns and stuff like that? So, it was an easy transition because I was doing re-engineering strategy for Ford, and then moving in a similar role for Diageo was an easy transition, right? So I did that, coming back as director of strategy for Diageo for its Guinness Nigeria business, and that was very exciting times. So same thing. How do we create value? We work back from a 5-year vision for the business. We set financial goals for the business. And then we started putting the building blocks and the things that we needed to do from a culture perspective to talent to, portfolio strategy, where the inefficiencies in the business, from procurement, from distribution, how do we take that out? How do we improve? How do we, so a lot of similar stuff that done before. And coming to do it at home was just very exciting. And to have actually done it at that time. For those that were here then, this was 2004, 2005, 2006. It was great times. We did exciting things. We changed, the face of the business, the face of the brand. It was more youthful, more exciting, time. So successful. I enjoyed doing that. So it wasn't really. It was more of a industry shift. Coming from selling cars to now selling alcohol, right? But the fundamentals, right, in terms of creating value and was kind of the same. Right. So a transition from that 5 years with Diageo and Guinness Nigeria to go do similar stuff with It's a lot. Now it was a new business coming up. Right? So went in there as one of the.
You said Etisalat.
Yeah, well.
Ah, okay. You
Yeah.
told me the story.
Yeah.
You need to retell this story
Yeah,
for the audience.
yeah. So so John did a lot, right? Because then I'd done similar stuff, and they were setting up the business here. So and no one gave them a chance because they were coming in 10 years after, I think, the big two brands, MTN
Yeah.
and MTN, and then I think it was Zain or was it Celtel, because the names kept changing, right?
Yeah.
And so no one gave him a chance that, you're coming in 10 years after. So I joined the team. It was a new team. We had a great CEO, and, we were all highly motivated. So it was quite very entrepreneurial environment, right? So leveraging the same skill sets, right? And being part of a team that was highly motivated to prove something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were able to, within 3-4 years, be a strong, competitive challenger within the telco industry as well. So it was same skill sets, same how do you create value, what do you need to do, and making it happen, and running the kind of programs and operational things that you need to do to make it happen.
I'm curious about, you told me the story of 080 Ninja with Etisalat, and I just feel like this is going to be a bit of a random segue, but I would love for you to retell that story.
Oh, the story?
Of setting up that kind of brand recognition, because you just mentioned brand recognition.
Yeah. I think part of the things that you do when you're trying to build a business, right, is kind of trying to understand the market that you're trying to kind of come into, and in particular, the consumers that you're coming, to try and attract to your business. So what are their motivations, right? What are the things that will connect with them emotionally? Because a lot of consumer spend is emotionally driven, right? So how do I bring this brand that is seemingly a brand from the Middle East, right? How do I make it connect with the local population? To a point where it will stir some kind of deep connection and motivation to want to be part of this brand, right? So I think, at that time, the thinking was, you come into this place and we make this new Etisalat company a Nigerian type company. I think it was good fortune and good thinking around that to come up with that 080 Niger, choose your number, right? So I don't think anyone after a while saw Etisalat as a Middle Eastern brand, right? I think
I didn't even know it was a Middle Eastern brand. Yeah,
well
done.
And that was part of the plan. So that drew a lot of people into it. So people could come and choose their number, right? And that was how we kind of started use that to build the kind of momentum in terms of differentiation and appeal to a very youthful segment, a very youthful target market.
And then you also were at Coronation as COO and partner.
Yeah, so that was me now trying to pivot more back to what I thought was kind of burning in me, right? Because I spent almost 5 years with Etisalat as well. Yeah, but like I said, the entrepreneurial spirit never dies, right? So at that time, I think Etisalat had become a bit more mature and kind of, but I had things in me that I needed to give birth to, right? So this idea of wanting to acquire businesses and be entrepreneurial, to me was something that I felt I needed to do. And at that time, 2014, I'd gone through some kind of personal situation that was like a wake-up call for me, like, hey, life is short, and you need to truly pursue the things that you've kind of, had kind of been shaped in your mind and kind of put it out there. So so in the process of wanting to do that, I end up joining Ike in Coronation, because I had been a long time older brother and mentor when I was coming up. So I think I was sharing my ideas and thoughts with him about what I wanted to do. And that, I was at some crossroads then, and he was like, "Hey, I just left Access Bank. Your ideas are on paper. Mine are a bit more concrete and solid. And why don't you, come in and let's set up this Coronation thing and leverage your background and skill sets to help do something similar." Because he was looking at doing something similar in financial services, which is how Coronation came
yeah.
about. So at that time, there was Coronation Capital, which was the only business at that time that was kind of known with the Coronation brand.
Yeah.
Right. And then that led to the acquisitions of different smaller entities, right, in insurance, in financial services, and that's how you kind of, saw the evolution of Coronation Merchant Bank, and then Coronation Insurance and Coronation Registrars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I ended up, doing that with Ike for a good minute, but I think at some point I got restless again, right, because I still had not birthed this thing that was inside me.
Yeah.
But when I look back, right, there were a lot of skills that I picked up at different points in my career, right? But there are also certain foundational skills that allowed one to transition from one industry to the other industry. Right?
I see. Yeah.
So once you have those foundational things, right, pivoting from selling cars to selling alcohol with Diageo to selling airtime.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Etisalat. And then subsequently going in to help set up businesses that will sell financial services.
Yeah.
Right. They all are kind of like standard type foundational skill sets that I think kind of transfers.
Yeah.
The key thing is your ability to quickly learn about the industry.
Yeah.
Learn about the people. Yeah. And then kind of move into them. But I think I learned great things from each of those things. More particularly, coming back in and understanding the Nigerian market.
Yeah.
And that. So yeah.
That's very interesting. I think I saw it as like a pivot. Like each pivot seemed very different, but when you put it into the perspective of I'm picking up skills and I'm transferring skills, so truly the industry or what I'm selling doesn't really change much as long as the skill set is there and the skills that you're picking up and transferring.
Exactly. So you're going to be open to that.
Yeah.
And I think what's critical with most people is you got to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to be honest with yourself as to what you don't know, but you also got to be honest with yourself as to what you do know.
Yeah.
And what you're bringing in at that time. So, and there's a lot of things that you've got to be a lifetime continuous learning type person, right? If you're looking at growing them. So I think that's also one of the key things that, got me excited about switching industries or switching, trying to kind of switch up my careers at different times. Yeah.
Nice. And so I guess now that we've done a deep dive into the person and the career journey, I now want to go into Sygen and the origin story of Sygen, because I find it quite interesting. So Sygen was formed by leveraging and repurposing the assets of a German-rooted company. So in December 2019, Sygen acquired the physical and brand assets of Nigerian German Chemicals PLC, and that kind of started an extensive integration and transformation agenda in 2020. And the original company is like a legacy company. So just a bit of history about the company for everybody that's listening. The Nigerian German Chemicals PLC was established in 1963, formerly known as, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, Host Products Nigeria.
That's a German pronunciation.
Yes, Host.
But the English pronunciation will say Hest.
Hest.
Or the local Nigerian pronunciation, they will have been Hest.
Hest.
But if you have to ask a German, they'll be like Host.
Okay, I'll use the local Nigerian pronunciation. I'll say Hest Products Nigeria Limited. Yeah. It changed its name. It was listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
Yes.
And I was looking into it, and looking at the portfolio of that company, it manufactured and sold quite a wide range of products. So it was like household products like detergents and bleach and hygiene products and agrochemicals, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides. There was even some veterinary and animal healthcare products, oil and gas products like demulsifiers and things like that. And so it was essentially almost the complete opposite of antibiotics, cough medicines, paracetamol, and other products in the Sygen pipeline today. But you acquire those assets, and Sygen is now a pharmaceutical company.
Yes.
So I would love to understand the idea behind the inception of Sygen.
Okay.
So as you were founding Sygen, what did you see in Nigerian German Chemicals PLC? I kind of see a bit of the, acquiring different types of companies from your coronation experience coming in. So I'm curious, like, as you were founding Sygen, what was the idea behind this one?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. So, like I mentioned earlier, I was at Crossroads. Yeah, I ended up in that process going into coronation, and within coronation, a few years after, about maybe 4 or 5 years, I was also at Crossroads again. Right?
Yeah.
About wanting to do what I really wanted to do. Yeah, it was this thing that I needed to give birth to, and I needed to be, and I knew it was always going to be something that was impactful, and I always knew I wanted to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Right? And I'd always seen the healthcare problem, something that was that needed a kind of different mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, based on my own background and experience of working in emerging markets and seeing that, where we needed more local participation.
Yeah.
Right, and we needed that participation in a kind of different way. We needed to find a way to be more independent. Right, I felt that, and to drive our own agenda. To be honest, yeah, I've always felt. I think that kind of patriotic mindset.
Yeah,
I think if you look at similar to what Ig and Herbert were doing at Access, was similar to that kind of mindset. How do we build like a local brand and local platforms that to global standards and things that Africans can take pride in, right? So I always felt, look, in the healthcare space, I felt there was an opportunity to do something similar. I also felt it was, there were other industries that I felt were, personal care industry, beverage industry. I think there were opportunities to build very strong local brands, local platforms with strong, global appeal.
Yeah.
Right. And I spent, almost over like a 10-year period looking at different assets. Right. I don't think I ever stopped looking at assets that I thought would fit into this idea of mine.
Yeah.
Right. And at different times, due to different things, the transactions were just not.
They fell through.
We kind of fell through. But I think this particular one was one where the banks were involved with kind of trying to dispose of the assets.
Oh, okay, right? Interesting.
So it was an asset acquisition transaction from the banks. So it was an easier kind of transaction to kind of go through. Although they had multiple bidders for the assets, but it was probably easier to deal with the banks in terms of acquiring those assets. And for me, I would always look at different assets and understand what I could do with them.
Yeah.
Right? And I kind of knew, they have very strong pharma brands. In fact, 70% of their income at some point was from pharma business. Right.
For Nigerian chemicals.
Yeah.
Nigerian German chemicals. 70% was pharma.
Was pharma.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
So I think I already knew, going in, this would be the right kind of platform to pivot, kind of transform. Yeah. Most people would not have probably seen the diamond in the rough in terms of how I saw it. Yeah.
Diamond in the rough. I like that.
Yeah. Because they were like, oh, this is kind of like a business that's been under receivership for 3-4 years. What do you want to? Why do you want to get involved with it? Most of the equipment is aged, north of 25 to 30 years old. That's a lot of heavy lifting, right? Yeah. Why do you want to do that? But once you have this thing in you, right, you don't see things the way other people see them. Other people see them as challenges, right? Obstacles. I saw them as, hey, wow, this is inspiring. This is just opportunity, right? This is what I need to do to solve this problem that I'm trying to solve, so we got into it and acquired the assets because it was something that I felt, could be polished and transformed into a world-class, life sciences platform business.
Yeah. Interesting. That's very interesting. I didn't know a lot of the background. I saw from my research, oil and gas products and insecticide, and so the number of 70%.
Yeah, but over the years, they had gradually moved in and out of different businesses.
Yeah,
so they'd become more of Pharma, beverage, because they did things like Vimto.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was them. Spa
Okay.
water.
Okay.
But they moved out of that. At some point, they were doing things like Parasol bleach.
Okay.
Right, some of the detergent stuff as well. And that's kind of, if you're in the life sciences business, yeah, you could go into things like, cleaning agents, right? Because
Yeah.
it's all about, having a clean, healthy environment, right? So it's kind of, related in a way.
Interesting. And I also like the diamond in the rough phrasing and how your perspective shapes the opportunity you can see
Exactly.
where no one else sees
Yes.
opportunity.
Yes.
I love that. And I guess talk us through founding a company where building from scratch wasn't actually the best or smartest path, where in your case, it wasn't from scratch. You kind of took something, you found a diamond in the rough that you were able to kind of transform
Yeah.
into what is Sygen today.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, look, there's two pathways, obvious pathways to entrepreneurship. One is starting from scratch in your mom's, garage, your mom's store, your parents' home, right? Your uncle's office,
Yeah.
whatever it is, leveraging family's assets to start,
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity. It all depends on where you are in your life stage career-wise as well, right? Of looking at possibly acquiring businesses,
Yeah.
right? And probably easier for you to acquire an existing business if you have a track record behind you, right? So either it's very strong work experience track record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's always easier to attract capital to an existing business, right, than to attract capital to a greenfield project, right? So in my case, it was a brownfield project. So let's call it a brownfield project. Now, if I was to have a pure greenfield project, all right, people would just not even see it. Like, oh, how long will it take you to, build this thing and put all the things in, build brands? But if I had this brownfield thing that, okay, people got to see a building. So he has brands, he has this. It's easier because it's there. And then this new thing that I'm selling about, this bungalow that you're looking at, by the time you come back in 5 years, will be, 10 floor, shiny, modern building.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you're dreaming, but I can see you moving to 3 floors. So it's easier.
It's easier to buy in.
Yeah, to buy into.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hence my approach to go that way.
Yeah.
Right? Easier to attract capital. And also probably shortens your horizon to being able to demonstrate results.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Interesting.
yeah. I think it's a pathway people should look at.
Yeah.
Right? In terms of, there's a known it's entrepreneurship through acquisition. So
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's a
Interesting.
lot of knowledge and write-ups about entrepreneurship through acquisition.
I hope the entrepreneurs listening are getting some inspiration from this and some ideas, because I find it quite interesting, just the whole inception of Sygen. We're going to kind of switch gears or shift gears a bit right now. Our show always comes back to one question.
Yeah.
What does it take to revolutionize the African healthcare business model? And today the lens is pharma. So we still import the vast majority of our medicines. Many products were never studied in African populations or had a very small minority of Africans in their studies. And so that gap will show up in access. It shows up in tolerance in terms of how well do you tolerate a drug. It shows
the
up in
efficacy of drugs,
in trust. And so here is the cure question for you. How do we develop drugs differently for African patients? And how do we scale manufacturing so those medicines are made here and studied in our people? I know there's some ventures that you're doing, which we'll get to in a little bit, but I'm just curious, when you ask yourself the question, what does it take to revolutionize the African healthcare business model in pharma? What immediately comes to your mind?
Well, two things come to my mind, right? I think the first one is, how do we rapidly start to change the ratio of dependence, right? Because as you know, almost 70-80% of the drugs we consume here in Africa is imported.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we start to drive up capacity, right? And then on the flip side, as you're trying to do that, is how do we solve for building critical components of the value chain, right?
Yeah.
Because you just can't really just focus on the manufacturing part of it, because you're still manufacturing drugs that were never really developed with us in mind.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So as you're solving that problem, trying to close the gap on dependency, you also need to start looking at how do you trigger the other components and elements of that are critical to also reversing that dependency, right? Because we know we need to develop drugs for us by us.
Yes.
Right. I think for me, Sygen going into two critical areas of one, let's help with increasing available local capacity and capability. And then let's also help with how we start to develop drugs for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, here as well. And I think two things is one, you have to look at partnerships, right? I think entrepreneurs here have to start looking at ways in which, also in pharma, you can't do it all by yourself.
Yeah.
And that mindset and that needs to start changing. How do we collaborate? Yeah, how do we partner? So for us to solve the problem of for us by us type situation was it just made sense that we will partner with people that had that capability.
Yeah.
Right. Hence our joint venture with the ORX Corporation of Canada. So we have a biotech business called Sygen ORX, and the goal is not drug discovery in the plain sense of drug discovery, which is kind of open-ended and higher risk type drug discovery, right? It's more R&D. It's more looking at African genetics, right? Looking at how existing molecules, existing drugs, when it comes to certain key areas, like I said earlier, that are peculiar to us. So we look at areas like anemia in pregnant women in Africa, right? How do we come up with a higher bioavailable micronutrient that helps to reverse the mortality rate of pregnant women in Africa? Because if you look at that, I don't think anyone is really solving for that in particular, right? Because it's not a European or Western world type challenge, right? So we need to start looking at things like that, right? Because Africans, as most people may not know, has the widest genetic diversity of any race, right? So and if you've been historically underrepresented at the clinical trial phase of drug development, by the time those drugs become commercial, you definitely end up where you just talked about, where there's a higher incidence of adverse drug reactions, or the efficacy of the drugs can be a mismatch. So we need to start doing that. And I think we felt, look, let's start this thing with this company in Canada, and hopefully use that to catalyze other people coming in as well, other Nigerians, other Africans saying, hey, this has been done, I guess we can. And hopefully attract more people from the diaspora to start to look back. And we've seen that, because we've had people reach out to us.
Oh, nice.
And there are other kind of partnerships that are kind of
brewing in the
works. In different areas,
exciting.
Similar areas. Right. And, so people are open to that partnership. And I think, and historically, even in pharma globally, it's always been about partnerships,
There's
right?
partnerships
all the time. You see, at some point, there'll be a new company called, it was Glaxo, it was by itself, then it was SmithKline by itself, right? Beecham by itself. Then became SmithKline Beecham, right? Then became Glaxo SmithKline. You know what I mean? So
now we have GSK.
Yes, you have GSK.
You also have like Novo and Nordisk,
exactly.
Novo Nordisk, like all of these partnerships.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's we don't do that well here, and there's some reasons why that doesn't really work well here. But there are opportunities, particularly in pharma. Where if we're trying to solve this problem of us becoming less reliant, right? If we're trying to build more resilient, healthcare platforms here for our people. Because what it does now, when we have a 70% import dependency or 80% import dependency on drugs, right, is that we are left open to supply chain situations where we can get cut off, right? And that is a major drug security risk.
Yeah.
We're left open to FX fluctuations, but less now than anything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're also left open to any kind of geopolitical type
Yeah.
situations, right?
Yeah.
So, having a healthy population,
Mm-hmm.
having is really critical to having a healthy economy. So,
Yeah.
so it's trying to solve for that problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you talk about partnerships and the importance of partnerships, because it ties to one of the questions I had of this kind of Canadian ORX joint venture to
Yeah.
create Sygen ORX. We know that more of the pharma industry in Africa needs to embrace these partnerships.
Yeah.
But give us somewhat of a blueprint of how to go about it. So specifically, I'm asking, how did this specific partnership take shape? Developing drugs for Africans by Africans is a big responsibility. And so I'm sure you would have had to choose the right partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, talk us through how this specific partnership took place. Talk us through what about Canadian ORX drew you to them. Obviously, there's other things in the works. So just what should we look for in partnership, and what can partnership look like?
All right. That's interesting, though. Let me talk about this particular one. So I think because of folks that I have, my network friends, colleagues, I tend to put out there what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not too shy about sharing what I'm trying to do with people. So I think the same way people were kind of worried about me when I decided to set up this thing called Sygen, right? And everyone was asking the question, why would you leave where you were working at this stage in your life, right? You had a decent job and you had this responsibility, and all of that, to go, at this age, right? You're 50 years old, right? You're going into being an entrepreneur. And like I said, look, I needed to get this thing off my chest. I needed to solve for a problem. And I guess also going brownfield was also a safer bet than greenfield. Right?
It's all
So
together,
it all kind of adds up, right? But Sygen itself, right? And it's part of when I respond to that question, stands for Science for Generations.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, it was a legacy project. Right. I didn't want to come in to do what everyone else was doing, which is let's manufacture drugs that have already been developed by other people, and then
let's just make them here
and then sell them to people.
Yeah. Well, not even make them here.
Yeah.
Let's finish them here.
Let's finish them here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and so what will that legacy be, right? Will that legacy be something that inspires, the next generation, right? Because all I'm doing is just doing what everyone else is doing, which is, finishing up drugs and packaging up drugs here. How awe-inspiring is that, So I always knew that it had to be way more than that, right? It'd be, okay, let's look at the entire industry and how do we solve for the challenge that we see around our own drug security. And the addressing local capability to develop drugs, right? And even just commercialize drugs. So I knew intuitively there was a lot of research being done in universities and stuff like that never really
reaches
commercialization, right? So if we could catalyze that, where there could be a biotech industry really here, where people kind of start to see the kind of plausible kind of research done here that could solve problems globally, right? The money, global money will follow that.
Yeah.
Right? But someone needs to lead, right? Well, I'm already thinking of doing this. Why don't we lead here?
Yeah.
So I think sharing that backstory with my friends and my network was kind of how the relationship with ORX came about.
Okay.
Because I was looking at different folks, and a friend of mine kind of told me, "Oh, this is interesting that you're thinking about that," because I know someone that I think you guys will get along, and he's probably thinking about, they're at the life stage as well, thinking about what they could do back in this region. And this is quite interesting because the company was in Canada. I flew out to Canada. We got talking.
Yeah.
And within 2 years, we decided, you know what, we're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was meet. Funny enough, when I first heard the name, I'll tell you a story about of the founder CEO. I thought it was going to be a white dude, right? Because his name was Alexander McGregor. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
Professor
that
Alexander
does
McGregor.
sound a bit.
Yeah. Well,
You know.
come to find out that his middle name was Olusegun McGregor, right?
Oh, okay. That changes a lot.
That changes a lot, right? So I think there was the stars or the gods aligned there in terms of meeting someone that had extensive patents globally, right? In Canada, had major impact in the Canadian pharma industry, right? And had patents globally, in drugs discovery and stuff like that. And I was willing to partner and look at, trying to solve some of these problems and inspire, the next generation here. So
Yeah. That is really interesting.
yeah.
And I think one of the questions that I had, because we've had this conversation before, we were getting coffee and you kind of talked me through your visions and just about how many drugs commonly used in Africa were never truly studied in African populations. And so this idea of repurposing and restudying them, customizing and improving the formulations for African patients, which could reduce the side effects and adverse events for the people actually using them. But then you mix that with the fact that African genomes are the most diverse genomes in the entire world. Like 2 people on the African continent differ genetically more than an African and let's pick someone from America.
Yeah.
Like completely different. And so the genetic diversity in Africa is huge.
Yes.
And so when you repurpose drugs for Africans so that it's more tolerable and lower side effects, you're
more
actually
effective,
you actually make those medicines work better for Africans, but you're also improving the safety and tolerability for the rest of the world as a result.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, I know we're talking through this specific partnership, but talk me through those plans and goals here in terms of taking then the drugs that work for Africa, which would work even better for the world, and how that comes into the way you're approaching this partnership.
Okay.
And I would love to hear that.
Yeah, so I think the key word for this kind of approach is called pharmacogenetics. I think I'm not a scientist, but that's the way it is. So the leveraging some the genetic diversity of people of African ancestry, right?
Yeah.
To improve on the efficacy of those drugs. So I guess there's some foundational things that are great for us, right? One thing that has helped us here is the fact that globally, Nigerian pharma industry is now recognized with a maturity level 3 rating, right? Which means from a WHO perspective, right? Any drug manufactured here, meets global
Standards.
Yeah, which opens the door for global export, right? But I think for us first is there are about 1.5 billion people in Africa, right? Probably about 1.3 in sub-Saharan Africa,
Yeah.
right? So it's a wide market,
Huge
right?
market.
Huge market. So if we focus on the therapeutic areas that we're prioritizing, and we solve for those areas, right? We have a market that allows us to export or license, either which way, from here into those markets, right? And the same will apply to markets globally where you have people of African ancestry, particularly in the Caribbean or in the Americas where you have
African Americans, even countries like Brazil.
Brazil and South America. So the market goes beyond what is just here, into that. And I think when people start to see that, and more people start to think about coming back here to solve for those problems, it only starts to reinforce the fact that Nigeria becomes a hub for pharma, which is ultimately our vision for this market. It starts to help us to build that kind of resilient component of our healthcare infrastructure, particularly in the pharma space, right? So,
I find that
That's where we see it.
I find that so interesting because I feel like I'm saying interesting a lot, but it is interesting because we have this concept that if you repurpose and customize drugs to make them safer for African patients, by virtue of African patients being more diverse, they become safer for patients across the
Globally.
globe.
Yeah.
And there is an ecosystem that has to enable that.
Yes.
So the idea that Nigeria has now reached WHO maturity level 3,
Exactly.
that means that the drugs that are produced here reach global standards, it almost unlocks the global
Opportunity.
market
Exactly.
where we think, Americas,
Yeah.
the Caribbean.
Exactly.
And I find that, yeah, it's...
So the good thing that you're seeing it positively, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you see people
Mm-hmm.
here on the flip side, local people here,
Mm-hmm.
think, oh, we are overregulated, or what I call strong regulation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when people are of that mindset, right, it kind of tells you that they are not in it for good,
Yeah.
right? They're in it from a purely transactional standpoint, right? Where they see the strides and the efforts being made by the regulator as negative, right? Because that only means that I want to sell substandard drugs. I want to sell counterfeit drugs.
Yeah. And this is
right?
getting in the way
And
of
it's getting
that.
in the way of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, what is being done is the right kind of platform.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have any kind of serious investor or operator, right, should see that the positive thing. Because if you're, there's no way. I always tell people that if you're focused on doing good, that you won't do well.
Yeah.
Right? That's just the way it is. So we are focused on doing good. So in the process, we're solving problems, right?
Yeah.
Which are good, social problems, right? And ultimately, we will do well, right? And we're not in it for ourselves, by ourselves. And there's just no way. So it is a positive thing.
Yeah. I think the strides that the regulators, and as I mentioned at the beginning, it's now not even just Nigeria. So we have maturity level 3 in Ghana, in South Africa, in Rwanda, in Senegal, in Tanzania, in Zimbabwe. So even on the continent, the market is growing. It's improving, and I think, yes, that should definitely be viewed as a positive thing.
You would think.
You would think, but it definitely should be viewed as a positive thing. I guess you've told us about just a few of the products. I think one, anemia in pregnancy, but this is just a one-liner question. Give me the one-liner for one of the first products you're excited about to come out of this partnership. What will a patient feel potentially that could be different?
I think the patient will feel healthier. Definitely healthier. More confident about the journey during that phase of their life. So I think primary thing we're looking at supporting pregnant women. Solving for that. It's not something that you want to solve for, but I think it's something that from a social standpoint is important that we solve for that. So I think, they'll feel safer.
So pregnant women feeling safer and trusting the drugs that they are taking, especially in the current climate where we see some information coming out about what pregnant women should or should not take. So I think pregnant women feeling safer and more comfortable about the options available to them. I love that. Okay. So I think one of the things I also wanted to ask on this question of revolutionizing the African business models. As I mentioned, when we set the stage at the beginning of today's episode, less than 10 manufacturers on the continent actually produce APIs. Obviously, there's so many manufacturers who are making strides to produce APIs on the continent. But we've had conversations about your ambitions to develop API manufacturing on the continent. And so in the vein or theme of revolutionizing the business model in Africa, could you just tell us more about it? Is it still on the table today? What does that business model really look like in your eyes of how to scale API manufacturing on the continent?
Okay. So, I mean, there's some great partnerships, right? For example, I mean, we know Emzor is, It's taking that stride, like
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, for the malaria APIs.
Yeah.
Right? And but it's still APIs that were developed by someone else's work, right? In terms of someone else's drugs. So, which is nothing wrong with where you play in the value chain,
Yeah.
right? So I think for us is how do we get more API partnerships, right? And Emzo is leading the way on that.
Yeah.
It's opened the door, and I think the success of Emzo in that particular venture will inspire others to come. So I think that is the kind of revolution that we're expecting. So people are stepping up, and because I mean, Emzo could just sit back and say, "Look, I'm doing well.
Yeah, we're making
a lot of money," and so. And if you know her, she's doing good, right? So she wants to do what is good for this country.
Yeah.
And that is part of the revolution, right? So when what you saw in my article when I talk about things happening, right?
Yeah.
I know Fitzin is also in some other kind of consortium, and they're looking at doing APIs as well. So there's things happening, we are like the new kids, right? I mean, when we look at Emzo and Fitzin, they're like they're the sages, right? The more highly respected folks, and there's room for where everybody wants to play. So and they're taking the lead and the charge in that. And I'm not sure a lot of attention is being paid to those kind of things.
Yeah,
right.
We should pay more attention.
And I think it's to raise that to bring more people to start to look back here, right? To say, oh, how can I be part of this? Thing that is happening in this industry, right? Especially in the diaspora, because there are people looking and thinking, how can I help? What can I do back? But if they get to know about things like this, I think it starts to snowball and accelerate what is possible. It starts to shorten the horizon of impact, right? Back here, and that is what we're hoping to kind of highlight, right? Get people to understand when they see two of the older, more mature. Like leaders in the industry, legacy pharma companies, indigenous pharma companies doing that. Oh, wow. Yeah. Then they see younger, new kids, 5-year-olds like ourselves, also coming in and doing things that are like, okay, wow, you guys want to set up an R&D business in Africa, you know what I mean? And on the flip side, on the back, because there's a strong correlation between, R&D and drug discovery, right? Well, we're starting with R&D, right? Repurposing stuff, and with the creation of new molecules in terms of APIs. If you started off building and developing local R&D skill sets, right? Partnering with universities and different kind of government healthcare institutions, right? To commercialize things, that starts to give confidence, right? That starts to also build local capability and local talent. It only just makes sense that within a short horizon, you will start to almost have a drug discovery type ecosystem here. Because moving from R&D to drug discovery will be an easier thing to attain. And it will also be a more credible thing to attain. Right. And before you know it, we have even bigger money. Chasing after bigger solutions that could be leveraged globally. Right. And that's the thing about catalyzing something and seeing how that sparks the next generation to take it from wherever you started things. So that's kind of the hope that this becomes a biotech hub, a pharma hub, across the value chain.
That, I think, what that illustrates in my mind is, okay, right now we have the legacy pharma leading the charge. They are putting their money where their mouth is, putting brick and mortar to
serious
build.
Investment.
Yes, 23 million is not beans. Putting serious investment to build the capability to get APIs manufactured on the continent. But we also, again, this word ecosystem keeps coming up. We also need to have these kinds of partnerships or collaborations with universities, with scientists, with these health institutions to kind of build that R&D ecosystem,
Yes.
because from the R&D ecosystem, there's a nice credible transition to
Pathway. Yeah.
drug discovery,
Exactly.
to innovation, to
Exactly.
biotech hub. So
Yeah.
both things can be true and happen at once. You can have
Exactly.
Legacy Pharma leading the charge.
Yeah.
They have
Exactly.
the resources
Yeah.
and the legacy
Yeah.
basically
Exactly.
to do that. But
Yeah.
we also need innovation to come,
Yes.
as well as an ecosystem to
Exactly.
foster that
Exactly.
innovation. So I really
Exactly.
like, because when you think, okay, how do you make more APIs on the continent?
Yeah.
Okay, we need to build more factories.
Yeah.
We need a factory in every
Yeah.
city. We need a
Exactly.
factory everywhere. On every road, you should see an API factory. But
Yeah.
no, there's so much more that goes into it than
Exactly.
just the brick
Exactly.
and mortar,
Mortar.
even though the brick and mortar
It's
is
important, but it will
important.
follow.
Yeah, it'll
Big one will
follow.
follow. Yeah. So you can do. So both can be true at the same time, like you
Yeah,
said, right?
yeah.
And you just have to say, okay, there are multiple levers that I need to pull, but I'm going to pull them,
Yeah.
in conjunction. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
love that. So now you mentioned science for generations,
Yes.
and you also have bigger dreams for Sygen
Yeah.
and for African biopharma through the Sygen Life Sciences Institute.
Yes.
You want to empower local scientists doing R&D
Yeah.
and drug discovery. You
Yeah.
want to eventually manufacture APIs at scale, build monoclonal antibody
Yeah.
capability on the continent.
Yeah.
And as I say monoclonal antibody, I mean even more complex drugs made from
Exactly.
biological human components. Sygen stands for Science for Generations. And so you're thinking about legacy.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to talk us through, one, what is the Sygen Life Sciences Institute? Because I think more people should know about it. And two, through the vision and the mission of the Institute, how are you thinking about legacy through the work that you're doing?
Okay. Yeah. All right. So the Sygen Life Sciences Institute is more of the social enterprise component of Sygen. All right. And its focus is about how we develop local capability in pharma. Right. Our focus with the institute is how to kind of develop local talent. Right. So we're looking at ways in which the institute can help support the education and the acceleration of capability in the life sciences space. Right. So that is what it has been set up for. And partnering with institutions, right, independent as well as local institutions, partnering with global institutions, that are focused on capability development in this space. Because I'll give you an example. We have pharmacists that graduate from schools, right, in here in Nigeria, but we don't really have any industrial pharmacy training programs, right? And in other parts of the world, right, that has been done.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, ORX Corporation actually runs that for the Canadian government. Right. They have a program that when people graduate from schools in Canada, they come into this almost like a postgraduate program to make them industrial pharmacists, make them industrial ready. You know what I mean? Not because you go from pharmacy school, you can go work in the hospital, you can go do different types of pathways, right? So if we're looking at the kind of resilience foundational type stuff, that is what Sygen Life Sciences is kind of focused on, looking at that space of the different gaps in capability and how can we bring different partners to bear to close that gap, with our own healthcare professionals, right? And that is the focus of that, and so it's just our own, independent contribution towards building, capability exponentially through partnerships.
And I guess
so. It's not commercial led thing, by the way.
Yes.
So,
and it's more of a social kind of enterprise, but it's legacy, and it is for the next generation. And I'm curious, how does the institute keep talent in Nigeria or in Africa? What are your aspirations for growing this social mechanism that would make people stay, make our scientists, our smartest people, our most motivated young
Yeah.
people stay here and
Yeah.
grow
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason why we set up, right? So how can we get that? I think, look, we're looking at ways. So things. I mean, I think the government is doing certain things, right? But I'm not sure how quickly that can solve the problem, because you hear different things that the government's trying to do with compensation
Yeah.
and all of that. But I think you also see in this space what is happening with individual doctors in diaspora also making the move back this way.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then some of them are fully transitioned. I know quite a number that came in around the same time I moved back,
Yeah.
and they've stayed. And some of them have kind of partially transitioned and still left the door open to go back and forth. So I think, ultimately, there's got to be some kind of a hybrid type model.
Yeah.
Yeah. That might be the pathway in the short to mid term to how we kind of retain talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And open the doors to collaboration. There's a lot of collaboration going on, particularly, with doctors in hospitals and all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think that is something that I could see snowballing, right? And increasingly over the next, decade or so.
Yeah.
Until we get into this brave new world, which is my vision of this brave new world, where global investments, is now kind of residing here and seeing this place as a hub for, health sciences, life sciences, medical sciences.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are going to play our part. Yeah. In continue to highlight that and continue to partner with people to help solve for that.
Yeah.
So that's what the Sygen Life Sciences Institute is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. And, on this topic of the next generation, on a more personal note, I don't know, people probably don't know this. So if you're listening, Charles, you have mentored me. We're actually wearing the same shade of blue. So if you're on video, you can see it. But if you're only listening on audio, we're literally wearing the exact same shade of blue. But you shared a life plan template with me that charted competency levels, time span, education, training, financial goals, personal goals, faith goals. And it has really helped me plan my career, plan my life. And I've used it. I've used the template. And I'm curious, for the people who are listening, can you give concrete, practical advice to the young entrepreneurs or young professionals who are listening? What should they do in the next 12 months if they want to advance their careers, build in African health and life sciences, or if we have Africa enthusiasts, build in Africa?
All right. Couple of things. I think, if you're an entrepreneur, you've just got to be resilient, right? You've got to see your vision and be resilient about pursuing that vision, right? But you've also got to be open to the right kind of partnerships.
Yeah.
Yeah. At different stages, especially, like I said, if it's healthcare focused, right? If it's pharma or life sciences focused, you definitely got to be open to the right, and your gut feel will tell you whether it's right or not.
Yeah.
And you've got to also have the right kind of advisors around you, right? Advisors that you trust around you, people that have your own good interest behind that advice, right? And it could be professional advice, and it could be other mentors that have walked the pathway that you're trying to walk. So it's always nice to have the right kind of universe of mentors, that you can stand out at different times. And then more importantly, have a good understanding, fundamentally have a good understanding of the industry that you're trying to come into, particularly when it comes to life sciences or say pharma.
Yeah.
You've got to have a good understanding of it, a good understanding of where the regulator is at, or where the market is at, and then the problem that you're trying to solve for and the opportunity, has to be clear to you. So those are the kind of things I would
Yeah.
I would say any kind of young entrepreneur coming in now, looking at, trying to solve a problem. Yeah, just be clear about that problem and the size of that problem. How big is that problem?
Yeah.
Really validate it with market data, which can be hard in this market, but it's still available.
Yeah.
And then, pilot.
Yeah. It's funny, there's a health tech founder I had a conversation with, and he said that, to the point of you saying you really need to understand the problem, is understand why no one has solved the problem yet, especially in the African context, because we have a lot of smart people.
Yes.
There's problems everywhere to solve.
Yes.
And so one of the questions, if you see that you want to go into a new space, not to not go into the space, but to get a real 360 understanding is, why has no one solved this problem yet? And what could that tell me about the way I can go about solving that problem? But that was great advice. And now I'd just love to understand, as we wrap up the interview, I would just love to understand your future outlook for pharma on the continent. So I'm just going to ask one question. If you could give me your 2030 headline for Sygen, so in 5 years, read it like a front page of a newspaper. Let's say you're on This Day or Business Day, and Sygen is on the front cover page. What would it read for Sygen in 2030?
2030.
At the end of this decade.
We're in 2026 now.
We're in 2025 now. You've
2025.
jumped ahead.
I've jumped. Yeah,
So you're in the future.
I'm ready in 26.
You're already thinking about the future.
Yeah, because maybe because of the financial planning phase that I'm in right now. But actually, I think that's what I'm thinking. That's why I said that. What would the headline be? Headline, it's Sygen Pharma launches new breakthrough drug for XXX. I'm going to keep XXX quiet.
Yeah, we'll just have the anticipation to see what that is. Yeah, amazing.
It's in a therapeutic area that is very pertinent to our environment.
Nice, exciting. Everybody stay tuned. We'll come back in 5 years. Maybe we'll have you back in 5 years and we'll walk through the headline.
No problem. I would love to do that.
Yeah, but we've covered a lot today.
Yeah.
And it's been such an insightful discussion. I'd love to do a conclusion with just a few rapid fire questions. So by rapid fire, you have to answer in one sentence.
Okay, I'll try.
So I'll ask 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
The first one is, anything in your pipeline you are excited about right now?
Yeah. I'm excited about XXX.
About XXX. Guys, we really have to bring him back in 5 years. Remind me.
Yeah.
Okay, next rapid fire question. What gives you the most hope today?
I think what gives me the most hope today is the energy of the African Nigerian youth. Yeah, gives me hope. Yeah, people like you give me hope.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it gives me hope. It excites me, actually. Yeah, when I see that. So I think this generation is going to do way better than our generation in terms of, the energy that they bring to it. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. And last rapid fire question. This one might be a doozy. What is the most remote place a Sygen product has reached in Nigeria? And how did they get there?
Where's this place? It's a village in Nasarawa. Yeah. I think it's called Alinia or something like that. It's a very remote place in Nasarawa. Right. And they probably they don't even have a real pharmacy. They have like a patent medicine store like there. Yeah. So we've been there. And then there's another remote part of Sokoto that more recently we're trying to get into because someone kind of highlighted the fact that they don't have a pharmacy, but they have, patent medicine stores. Yeah. So, yeah.
Interesting. And I think that speaks to the testament of that last mile delivery, getting drugs to patients through to the last mile directly to where it's needed the most.
Yes. There's a lot more that needs to be done in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is it a problem worth solving for? I think it is. And if you dive deep into it and solve for it,
Yeah.
there's a lot that can be done there.
Yeah. Charles, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your vision. I think to me, the takeaway is medicines designed for our patients, made by us at our scale, designed and researched by our scientists, ecosystems, and the importance of everyone in the ecosystem to achieve the lofty goals that we want to achieve in the pharma landscape. And yeah, I really took a lot from this conversation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And for our listeners, you can find Charles and Sygen on LinkedIn. Don't forget to subscribe to The Cure and share this episode with anyone who's passionate about transforming healthcare in Africa. Any last words, Charles?
No, thanks. Thanks for having me. And hopefully we get more people inspired to come into this healthcare space.
Yes, that is the goal. Hope, infusing hope into the narrative. Thank you, everybody. And see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.